All right, joining me, very excited to talk about this guy, talk to this guy, obviously over the last couple months as we've been stuck at home trying to find creative ways to bring you content, and a guy that I love talking hoops with pretty much all the time, consistently, David Grace. He's one of the most well-known assistant coaches in college basketball, coached at UCLA, Cal, Vandy, Oregon State. And we're just going to talk a little hoop, try to entertain some people for a little bit. Coach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing really well. It's great to be on with you. I'm excited.
Well, I appreciate you making some time. And look, first of all, dude, I want to talk basketball because I do think people need, there's reasons to be focused on things going on in the real world right now, but obviously people also need distractions. And I would just start by asking you live in Nashville with your wife. I hope you and your family are doing okay. Everything okay right now?
Yeah, everything's fine. Our family's doing well. I have a daughter that is a probation officer in Atlanta, and she's been tasked to go out on the front line over there. So I worry about that. But we're doing well. We're doing all right.
Yeah, man, it's a scary time. And, as I've expressed through all my platforms, obviously it's opened up eyes, I think, for a lot of people, myself included, some of the stuff that people that don't look like me, don't sound like me, maybe don't have the same background as me, whatever terminology you want to use, some of the things that they've been going through that I didn't really fully understand. And, it's an unfortunate situation, but, I think we're all learning and hopefully kind of evolving as people with this. I do want to talk hoop, though, man, and you and I have known each other for a long time. We used to hang out a lot in L.A. When you were with the Bruins. And I think most people that would watch this, as I mentioned, you're one of the most prominent assistant coaches in all of college basketball, claims to fame, multiple Sweet 16s, recruited Alonso Ball, first scholarship offer, all that stuff. But real quick, I think the unique thing about you is not only have you been incredibly successful throughout your career, but you have a non-traditional path. You were actually in the military, serving in the Air Force. When you decided that you wanted to get into basketball coaching, you were coaching one of your sons. So for people, who might not be as familiar with your story, you served in the Air Force for about 2 decades. Just would love for a quick rundown of all that stuff.
Well, yeah, I started, we didn't have AAU back then when I went to high school. That's how long ago I went to high school. So it was hard getting seen. I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states. So, I was going to walk on at Northwestern State University. My mom, she said, "How are you going to pay for that?" And I said, she was going to pay for it or you were going to pay for it. And she said, "No, I'm not." So I didn't know about grant and aid. So she talked me into joining the military. First, she wanted me to go in the Army. So I was not going to do that. I saw what my stepfather did. So I joined the Air Force. And it was the greatest thing I ever did because I learned so much over the years. I got to serve my country. I got to meet some incredible people. I got to learn how to be a leader. I learned how to be a follower. I had to learn many things, how to get along with others and work together over, about 20-year period. And also, I served in Desert Storm during the war, supervised troops during that, and we got through that. None of our guys were killed, and I'm proud of that as well. And then I got into coaching basketball. I started coaching with Boo Williams, AAU program, 12-year-olds. Then that led to I got promoted, during that time, and I got assignment out to Phoenix, Arizona. And I asked Boo if I was good enough to be a Division I coach, and he said I was. And they just boosted my confidence. And he told me how to get my degree. I moved out to Phoenix. I started coaching AAU real quick, and then I went to coaching high school while still in the Air Force. I got a divorce while I was still coaching and still in the military. Took full custody of my children and was coaching at Trevor Brown High School as assistant. We were really good. Had 3 Division I players. Went to the Final Four in the state tournament, and then those kids were on our AAU program. We eventually started to Arizona Magic and had great success with that team. I had 2 NBA pros, and Jared Bayless and Louis Amundsen, amongst other Division I players. One year we had our whole team was Division I players and played in the big time tournament. Back then there was no EYBL. Then retired from the Air Force, became a head high school coach at South Mountain High School. We took over a bad program. They were 4-17. They were on hard times. It wasn't really a bad program. Great kids, and the coach there was a great guy. So it wasn't a bad program. This was on hard times. We turned it around in 2 years and won a state title and won 29-4. Then I moved on to Sacramento State, then to the University of San Francisco, up to Oregon State for 5 years with Craig Robinson, Michelle Obama's brother, and then 5 years at UCLA with Steve Alford. We had a great run there as well. We had a great run at Oregon State. We won 78 games in 5 years.
I want to talk to you about Oregon State in a minute, but
then over to Vanderbilt, and that's where I'm at now. Well, we had Cal. I was at Cal last year, so can't leave out the Bears. I love the Bears.
Absolutely. So to backtrack, first of all, I didn't even really think about this until you mentioned it, but I'm guessing, listen, it's kind of cliche to say, but obviously the things that you learn in the military, teamwork, all that stuff is a metaphor for life. And they're things that I'm sure you brought back with you to civilian life. But when you said learn how to be a leader, but learn how to be a follower as well, I feel like there's a lot of basketball kind of parallels there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. A lot of things that we did in the military, it goes with basketball, but learning how to be a great follower. If you're not a great follower, you're not going to be able to be a great leader. Some people, there's exceptions to every rule, but when you join the military, you're going to be a follower. So you got to learn how to be a follower, and then they'll promote you to be a leader. So, which was fine. When I joined, when I started coaching, I was obviously assistant coach, and I learned how to follow the head coach, and I also learned how to lead the players as well. So I got to get to do both duties, and it's helped me through my career.
I'll tell you this, there's one other coach that has told me you have to learn how to follow before you can be a leader. That's Chris Beard. So you're in good company there. I mean, if there's somebody that we could all be taking advice from, pretty successful in life, it's Chris Beard. So, you kind of, and I appreciate you kind of giving the wide-ranging thing. What was it that made you want to coach basketball? So again, you were in the Air Force, serving your country, all the different things that you were doing. Obviously, at a certain point, you're going to retire from the military, but why basketball? I mean, you played when you were a kid, so maybe that's whatever. But what made you go from, this military life has been great for the last 2 decades of my life, but I'm ready to try something new. And when you decide that is something new, why is it going to be, I'm going to coach basketball? And then even further with the goal to coach at the college level.
Well, when I was coaching with Boo Williams, I was coaching his 12-year-olds, and the guy that got me into coaching, the head coach of the team, was a guy named Carl Harris, and he was always talking about Boo Williams' summer tournament in April, where back then it was John Thompson, Big John Thompson, Krzyzewski, Dean Smith was still coaching at North Carolina, and he would say, hey, man, we're going to go. They're going to be at the tournament. You're going to get to say hello to them. And I thought he was lying. Sure. I didn't. There's no way in the world I'm going to get to meet those guys. I love basketball. I played it. I played base level basketball while I was in the Air Force, which is a high level basketball if you've ever been around the military. And so that day came. I was in Holland Hall in Hampton, Virginia, in our Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. And I was there the whole day, and all those coaches came in. And I was up in the bleachers, and I was watching assistant coaches work, because back then they didn't have parents in one area and coaches in the other. They didn't have it marked off. You could mingle with the coaches and the fans and the parents and the
Sure.
handlers. So I watched that the whole day. It got to be like 11:30 that night, and I just had a dream, like it was like a daydream.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to be getting out of this military in 5 or 6 years, and I want to be able to do something, and that looked pretty fun to me. So I got the bug, and I had a dream. I said I can be a Division I assistant coach, and then 5 minutes later I said, well, if I'm going to be assistant coach, I want to be a head coach. So that's when the dream started in 1997, and a lot of people say I don't play with a full deck when it comes to chasing my dream, because I really believe God put that in my mind, and that's been the journey ever since.
Well, and that would be kind of a follow-up question. I mean, I think most people that are fans of college basketball would sit back and say, well, there seems to be a pretty linear path to be an assistant coach. You play at a high level, maybe you go to a Duke, you go pro for a year or two, then you go to Duke as an operations guy or as a grad assistant, and then you become an operations guy, then you become an assistant, then you become a head coach. What is the path? Or, you figured it out on the fly, and I think that's why you and I have always been close, is because, we're both kind of independent, entrepreneurial, do our own thing kind of people, but you had to figure it out on the fly. Now, obviously, you got advice along the way from Boo Williams, from Atope, who runs the Compton Magic, a good friend of both of us, but what were the first steps? I mean, go ahead. I mean, you kind of already laid it out, but when you decide I want to make this move, what are the steps?
Well, after coaching for Boo, I got promoted, and so I got assignment out to Phoenix, and
promoted in the Air Force, right?
Yeah, assignment in the Air Force. I had to cross train. I went into a different career field. Just the Air Force was downsizing, and I was promoted, so I was hurt because I had to leave Boo. I didn't want to leave Boo, and then this is how God works. I get stationed out at Phoenix. Eventually, we start the Arizona Magic, which fell under Atope Unam of the Compton Magic, who has helped me so much with my career. And people in the game didn't know that and understand that. And we became great friends. And, other people's helped me along the way. But, he was the one that really got me going. He helped me get to the college level. When I became the head basketball coach at South Mountain High School, one of the Compton Magic's kids' aunt was the principal.
Okay.
So that's how I got hired at South Mountain, and along other people helped me as well. Chad Groff with Area Coast Basketball has helped me along the way as well. But Atope has been super. He's been great. He helped me get with Sacramento State. He's helped me with many jobs. He was influential in UCLA, in Oregon State, and all the colleges that I've been to. Not so much the last one in Vanderbilt, but all the rest of the way. And we continue to stay friends to this day. So the point I'm getting to is I put myself around great people.
Sure.
And I've worked hard. Atope would tell you I didn't sleep. If the ball was bouncing, I was there.
Yeah.
And I was networking. I was building a reputation of a hard worker. I was instilled with my parents at a young age. I remarried to my wife, and she's been so supportive, very understanding. She's in the next room making me lunch now, so I got to put a shout out there for her. So,
yeah.
But again, around great people, getting to meet people like yourself.
Thank you.
Getting to, being influenced by your work ethic and how you came along. I've had to earn it. It's not been conventional.
Yeah.
I've been told many times no. I'm still getting told no.
Yeah.
Today, and you only need one yes. And but I think the key is people call me all the time, and the young guys are calling me and saying, "Hey, how can I get into business?" A lot of the military guys are doing it now, and they're calling me, and I'm just saying you have to be around great people. and you got to work, and you got to not take no for, as a final say. You have to keep knocking on the door, and the door will eventually open, and you'll get to where you want to get to. But there's only so many jobs in this business, and it's so cutthroat. So I'm very blessed and very thankful of where I've been.
All right, perfect. So I hear your phone buzzing in the background, which is great because no, it's great because this is what I want to ask you. I know you, and I know many people that are assistant coaches. I don't think people realize, and head coaches too, not to say head coaches don't put in the work, but we see these 30 to 40 games in a college basketball season, and we don't understand the grind of 365 days a year. And I bring up your phone ringing because I know that you're constantly on the phone, gathering information on prospects, helping put together a schedule, helping your current players in whatever situation they have. And so I know, like so many jobs, that no 2 days are the same, but I think we spend so much time focusing on the head coaches. What is, Coach K goes from media availability to practice to film to game, whatever. And nobody talks about what you guys are doing behind the scenes to make a Coach K, to make a Steve Alford, to make a John Calipari, a Rick Barnes look good on game day. So take a fan through, do you have kind of an everyday routine? Is it on the fly? Obviously it depends, it changes, in the summer, normal summertime when you're traveling for recruiting, but what is a normal day like for you if such a thing exists?
Well, you went out a little bit, so I heard the last part of it. So anyway, I think you're asking me what's a normal day for a college coach, assistant coach?
Yeah.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
You get up early, especially if you're on the West Coast as an assistant coach. You get up because on the East Coast they're already up. So you get up early, you get with your connections, you talk to them. You're always, recruiting is 24/7, so that never goes away. You're making sure your players are okay, how they're doing in school. You're making sure that they're on time to their classes and their appointments. You're making sure you're getting ready for practice at the time that some practice in the morning, some practice in the evening. We're going in the afternoon, and so you got to make sure that you're doing that. And it is a long day because you're always on the phone. It's never a time that you're not on the phone. Either texting a recruit, texting their parents, texting the barber, texting the AAU coach, the high school coach, the aunt, the uncle, whoever is involved with the kid. So and then you're doing practice planning or game planning. If you got the scout, you're watching film. Even if you don't, you're watching film of your players yourself, analyzing what they're doing in practice, and just to make that head coach look great. You're asking the head coach, how can you help him and how can you take things off the plate? As assistant coach, I've always, I've also done interviews just in case he wasn't able to do the interview in his place. And so, or going to a function and speaking in the place of the head coach.
When you are on the phone all day with a recruit, but also the barber, the parents, the this, the that, is it to gather information? Is it to build a relationship, something in between? What about that?
Well, you're always gathering information, and you want everybody around that young man that you're recruiting to say the school that to mention your head coach and your school that you're at. You want everybody to say, hey, you should go to such and such school, or you should go here, or you should go there. But you want them to you want them to say, hey, I want them to go play for that head coach in that school that you represent. And so you're always gathering that information, and you want to give that feedback that you're getting, and you want to give that to the head coach and the rest of your staff, because intel is very important. It's just like the military. The more intel you have, the better you're going to be, the better results. So when we have to learn how to combat some of our competition to be able to beat our competition. And so you're always fact finding. You're always, and I tell people all the time, I tell these young guys, I say, you're gonna get lied to. I get lied to almost every day.
Sure.
So that's just part of human nature. And you have to, know when they are lying and when they're not lying. And you also got to recruit great kids, because great kids usually, not all the time, usually have great people around them. So when you have that, then you have, you target in on those type of kids, and that's who you recruit.
So I had, Jim Calhoun, I talked to him probably a month ago, and he had some incredible insight. Give me one thing when you're doing the fact-finding research, one thing that makes you say, oh man, this kid's for us. And then one thing that you would find out that would say, we got to end this right here.
Well, I want to make sure the kid's good enough. That's the first thing I do. And then I want to make sure, I want to see what kind of student he is. And I want to see, because usually better students are going to be
hardworking.
They're going to be hard workers. And we want to see the type of parents they have and see what their personal life is. They don't have to have two parents, but the parent situation, we want to make sure that's all right. It's a checklist. It's a thing that I just naturally go by. I want to see who's around them. I want to see his social media. I want to see who he's interacting with and who he's talking to. I want to talk to his high school coach. I want to talk to his teachers, maybe the guidance counselor or the janitor. The janitor has a lot of great information on these kids. So I want to know if they treat people right. Yeah. These young men help us keep our jobs.
Sure.
And so we want to make sure that we're recruiting the right young man to represent not only us, but the school and the head coach and as well as the assistant coach. So, bad social media, that turns me off. Any negative things that I think will become constant in their life, as far as if they're treat people bad, that turns me off as well. I really want to get to know the young man too. So I spend a lot of time texting with him, because that's the form of communications that they usually like. They're not good on the phone.
Sure.
They rather text with you or IG, through that. And there's multiple things that will turn me off and send me off into another direction, because again, I like to eat. I like to so I need young men to help me eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the difference? So as I mentioned, you've coached, I believe it's 6 different Division I schools, Sacramento State, San Francisco, Oregon State, UCLA, Cal, Vandy. What is the difference between recruiting at a place like Oregon State? It's a high major, but it's not a blue blood, versus a place like UCLA, where I assume when you have those 4 letters across your chest, gets you in the door pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, UCLA gets you in the door. People say, well, Grace, you should be able to get, everybody should come to UCLA. Well,
Nonsense.
that's farthest from the truth. We'll get in the door. They'll love to talk to us, and they'll love to put us on. When I was at UCLA, they would love to put us on their list.
And they'd love the free official visit too, but continue.
That's right. They loved going down to Boa's Steakhouse on Ocean in Santa Monica for official meal. So they enjoy that. So we have to watch for that. But the difference is, at UCLA, you're recruiting against some of the greatest coaches of all times. You're recruiting against Kansas, North Carolina, Duke. Arizona was a great competitor of us when we were there. So those guys and those staffs, they know what they're doing as well, and they got a lot to sell as well. So in a lot of ways, UCLA was a lot harder. In a lot of ways, especially with the one and done kids, because a lot comes with those kids. So that was a lot different than at Oregon State. Oregon State, it was very, at UCLA, we know who we're going to go recruit. The well-known, the top 15 guys in the country, top 20 guys in the country. Every once in a while we go recruit a diamond in the rough. But at Oregon State, we're always recruiting diamonds in the rough. And young men that are not in the top 20 and 25 and top 30. And we have to, really, really do our homework on the young men that we recruited up there. And I thought we did a great job recruiting up at Oregon State. We had, Roberto Nelson was a 2-time Pac-10 scoring champion. Eric Moreland just won an NBA title with the Raptors, wasn't recruited heavily. Jared Cunningham won 24th. He's a 24th pick in the draft, first-round draft pick with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we had many more. Joe Burton is still playing overseas. Devon Collier is still playing. Angus Brandt. We had some really good players while we were there, and I was really proud of our staff and Coach Robinson allowed us to go out and get those young men.
Dumb question, but I would guess while you're incredibly proud of everything that you've accomplished, I would guess finding the guy that's a first-round pick that ends up at Oregon State is probably as fulfilling, if not more fulfilling, than the UCLA guy. Now, that's no disrespect to UCLA, but as you said, Alonso Ball, TJ Leaf, everybody can see that guy's a future pro. Maybe they can't see it with Jared Cunningham or Eric Moreland or whatever.
Very true. Very, very true. You love them all. I mean, there's,
of course, yeah.
I love my high school kids just as much as I love, the rest of the NBA guys that I've helped recruit to get to the NBA. So, but you're right, to get like an Eric Moreland who had to go to prep school, didn't even start on his high school team, and now he was with the Raptors and won a world championship. So that's those type of stories I really, really like to talk about. And he's such a great young man. I was on the dean list too while I was at Oregon State, and just a great young man.
So I don't know if you can share it or if there's anything interesting about it, but to go from starting in high school to NBA champion, that's kind of an incredible story. I mean, what did you guys see in him that maybe other people didn't?
Well, he was a 6'1" guard as a freshman in high school, and he graduates at 6'10". Okay. So he had a tremendous growth spurt in the 4 years he was in high school. He qualifies out of high school, goes to a prep school back east. Halfway through his high school, his prep school year, he gets offered by UTEP, Tony Barbie, and he goes to UTEP, and he can't play. He has to sit out the rest of the year. At the end of the year, Tony Barbie gets Auburn and leaves. And then Tim Floyd comes in at UTEP and doesn't want him. And his guy that he was close to him sent me film on him. And I saw the 6'10" skinny kid playing hoops, and I said, man, this young man's going to be a pro. Wow. And we had to battle Oregon. We beat Oregon over him, and he came to Oregon State, and he had to sit out a year. He hurt his shoulder. Then he was he broke the freshman shot blocking record and had a great career at Oregon State. Doesn't get drafted, goes into G League, works his way up through the G League, and gets with the Toronto Raptors and wins a world championship.
There's a different path for everybody, man. There's a different path for everybody. How much, and that's kind of a good kind of talking point. I mean, I look at a story like that. For every kid like that, there's a McDonald's All-American that goes one and done, maybe goes to college, underachieves, but said, you know what, I was a one and done, I'm leaving, and never makes it. I don't know what that means, but I just find it interesting that I could probably find 5 kids from his class who can't miss that missed. I don't know what that means, but I just think that's kind of interesting,
Yeah, it happens, and it's a shame. We overhype kids all the time. And you have to put in the work, and you have to go to the right situations too. So it's a puzzle. And you see kids that are really hyped high that don't make it, and you see kids like Eric Moreland that do. And it's just, that's part of life too. You got to continue to work. You can't rest on your laurels.
Interesting kind of question. You don't have to name the specific school or the head coach you were working for, but how often does a assistant coach go to bat for a kid that maybe the head coach isn't sold on? Like, you see XYZ player, and again, you don't have to name the school or the coach, but you say, man, that guy, we got to have that guy. I know his parents, I see his work ethic, whatever. And the coach is like, I don't know. And I'm sure some of those battles you win and some of those battles they win. But I would guess that probably happens more often than fans realize.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. Happens in most staff meetings. You know, we recruit for the head coach.
Sure.
So we have to really find out what the head coach likes.
Sure.
And that's an art. You know,
Yeah.
We can't say, like, there's been plenty of times I say, man, I love this kid, but it's not about me. I'm assistant coach. And then, so I really want to get to know my head coach and who I work for, so I can get at the young man that he likes, and we go from there. So sometimes you hit it right where you're on the same page, you know, and hopefully that happens a lot. But there's also times where you're going to have a disagreement, but it's not about the assistant coach. It's about the head coach and what he wants. It's his program.
So the last really 3 schools that you've recruited or you've coached at, UCLA, Cal, and Vandy this past season, very good academic schools. UCLA is maybe a little different because it's more of a traditional blue blood, but how is coaching at a really strong academic school? Because I would assume in some cases it's easier because you have a ton to sell, but I would assume in a lot of cases it's harder because the pool of kids that you can get in is a lot smaller. And I just want to, even before you answer that, want to jump in and say, these are things that I think a lot of fans don't realize is it is still a university setting. And I know we make these jokes about, you know, they're pro athletes, whatever, but you still got to send a transcript to admissions. You still got to get the rubber stamp from whoever is approving students. And so I would guess coaching at a Vandy, Cal, even at UCLA is different than some of these other places.
A lot different. And there's no, you know, everybody asks me where I'm at these academic schools. And these 3 academic schools you talk about are all the same on this. They'll say, well, what's the least that the student athlete can get to get in? And it's a moving target. Because there's so many other factors that play to get these young men into a UCLA or a Vanderbilt or a Cal. So you have to understand that, and you really, really got to, you know, don't waste your time on a young man that's not going to qualify.
Sure.
So, and the pool is very little. And I think, you know, in today's world, even different than five years ago, it's getting less and less important to these parents and kids on the academics. You know, I'm just seeing it. It's a change in paradigms. The mindsets are different to these parents. You know, they're just trying to get that money and get it quick, and they're not so much relying on a high academic degree. I mean, I've seen a kid just leave Cal going into his senior year, and he's going to go to a state school, and he's giving up a Cal degree for a state school degree just to play for 1 year.
Yeah.
So that's an example of that. And but it's very difficult. It's, you know, some schools, they don't even care about the transcript. They know they're getting it. And then other schools, you know, you have to really you know, go after the young men and then, you know, you don't want a young man to sneak him in underneath and then he can't do the schoolwork.
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't understand that in today's world, these young men are going to do the schoolwork. You know, there's no giving them basket weaving classes. They don't have that at the last 3 schools that I've recruited to.
So why do you think that change has happened? Because I see it talking to parents as well and what I do. And it is really, frankly, a little bit disappointing. Is not that you don't want the best for your son, but, statistics, we live in a world of facts. And, I can name a number of parents that I've talked to that, where are you looking at? Oh, wherever they're going to get us to the league the fastest, or the green room the fastest, or the lottery the fastest. And yeah, when you're recruiting Zion or Alonso Ball or Anthony Davis, that's a fair logic for a parent to have. But when I'm telling you, I've talked to parents that their kids are, I don't even want to say top 100, whatever. Not saying you can't make it, but it's just different, man. What do you have any thoughts on why that's changed so much?
It's just millennials, in a different generation. I think they think differently as a whole. You have exceptions. You have a lot of parents that do still value that, but there's a whole lot of ways to make a living now in America.
True.
Prior to the pandemic, but and I think these kids say, hey, I'll just go design an app, or I'll go do this, and maybe I don't even need a Vanderbilt or UCLA or Cal degree. Maybe I only need a Arizona State degree or Arizona degree to get that. And why do all that hard work when I can just go and do state school work, and they all think they're going to the NBA anyway. So, and the parents do too. Yeah. So then when reality hits, and they're getting a degree from a state school besides a high academic school, and then they just live with it. So, but I've noticed over the last two or 3 years that is changing.
No, 100%. And it's disappointing because, it's just not a reflection of reality. There's a very few number of people that are going to make a living and never have to work a day of their lives without, if it's just basketball. And it's just craziness, man. It's just craziness. Real quick, I do want to talk about some of your guys that you've coached, but what about transfers? I mean, I feel like that's even changed the last 2, 3, 4 years where, there's graduate transfers. There's a Reed Travis who values his Stanford degree and then goes to pursue a championship at Kentucky. A couple guys from Harvard, Seth Towns, who's now at Ohio State, Bryce Aiken at Seton Hall, et cetera. But, it just feels like the transfer stuff has gone crazy. I'm not opposed to a grad transfer. You get your degree, you want to play somewhere else, it's fine. But it just feels like, if you have a good season, you're going to declare for the draft. If you have a bad season, you're going to transfer. And it just feels like there's no middle ground in between, Yeah,
I mean, the transfers have changed college basketball, in my opinion. If you notice, most of the high major schools, they just wait, to the end of the school year and just pluck kids off the mid and low majors. So it's changed. I think it's hurting high school. It's going to hurt high school kids down the road for the amount of scholarships and stuff like that. But, it's our culture is changing. It's okay now to go to 3 different high schools and 3 different colleges. That's just the way, the world is now. So, it is part of it. As an assistant coach and a head coach, we just have to deal with it and make the best of it. Sometimes you win out, sometimes you don't. But it's changing, man. It's okay for a young man to start at, say, Sacramento State, then go over to Boise State, and then I might try the East Coast and end up at Georgia Tech.
Sure.
So that's okay for this generation, and who am I to say it's wrong? But it's just different, and I think us older guys have to adapt and overcome.
No, absolutely, and it's a new reality, and I think that the people that are embracing it are going to have success like anything else. One thing, though, I do want to ask you, the reason I want to do this with you is to really get somebody who's in this business, their insight into the things that are happening and that affect this sport. And with transferring comes tampering. You've, on some degree, I'm sure, lived it, or you have belief that you've lived it. And I've tried to explain it to my audience about the idea that yes, if you're David Grace, the star point guard at Vanderbilt, you're not necessarily if I'm Aaron Torres, the assistant at XYZ school, and you're the star point guard at Vanderbilt, I'm not calling you on the phone and saying, hey, blow off Vandy, come hang with me. But there are ways around it. Maybe you had a pre-existing relationship with a parent. Hey, if he's not happy, just keep us in mind. How bad is it? Because I think it's really bad, and I don't think the casual fan fully understands that.
Well, I'm sure it's really bad, because and a lot of it is hard to catch. You already have a relationship with the AAU coach. You already have a relationship with the high school coach, and you're probably recruiting another kid that's from that same program. So, I'm sure a lot of assistant coaches are out there or even head coaches saying, well, how's Tommy doing over at Georgia Tech? How's he doing over at University of Florida? If he's not happy, well, why don't you have him come over with us? And when you get the one-time transfer, you're going to probably even get more of that, and that's where integrity comes into play. If you're an assistant coach, that's not a great behavior to have, because, what comes around goes around too. So, the one thing that's been great with basketball, besides football, they do that in football all the time, I believe, as far as, especially when they're being recruited. I don't know once they get to the university, but when they're getting, in football, you'll commit to a school and then take official visit at another school.
Sure.
So that wouldn't fly in college basketball. So basketball has had a code of ethics when it comes to that, but I'm sure with the one and done, with the one-time transfer coming up, there's going to be a ton of tampering going on. They'll probably be tampering in the layup lines.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've told people all along, and I think this is where you stand. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think grad transfer, if you graduate and you get that piece of paper, you should do what you want. If your coach leaves for whatever reason, you should be able to leave, because I don't think people realize, you playing for, if hypothetically Bob Huggins is your head coach and hypothetically he left and they hire Jay Wright to replace him, and you're a 6'10" power forward that all he does is rebound and you play Bob Huggins basketball. Now Jay Wright wants you to play a different way. Your whole career could go sideways because of that. So I've always been an advocate of that. But if you're just having trouble, I don't know, I'm not in favor of the one-time transfer rule, but I don't know that my opinion matters all that much, but whatever. Do want to get a couple thoughts on some players that you've coached. You've told this story many times, but for people who haven't heard it, Alonso Ball, you've known Lonzo since, I believe, the 8th grade on some level. Tell us that story, because I know you love telling that one.
Well, I was at Oregon State at the time, and I was going down to see a couple kids that I had been recruiting hard that were upperclassmen. And I called Atope Unema, and I said, Atope, do you know any young players, like freshmen or incoming freshmen or sophomores? And he said, well, there's this kid named Alonso Ball that some people are talking about. He's a incoming freshman at Chino Hills High School. And hey, why don't you fly down here? I'll meet you over there and we'll go see the kid. This is in the fall. This is why they're getting ready to practice and we're allowed out. And he said, we'll swing by and see him first before we go see the other kids. So I met him at Chino Hills. We get in there. They're already practicing and they're scrimmaging. And I see Lonzo go down the court, back down again, and back down. Then they take a water break. So up and down 4 times. So when they take the water break, I look over at Atope and I said, I've seen enough. I'm going to go offer him. That's all I needed to see. I'm going to go offer him a scholarship to Oregon State. So I go over to the high school coach, because we're not allowed to talk to Lonzo, Coach Steve Bake at the time. And I say, Coach, we're not going to stay. I've seen enough. He's got a scholarship offer to Oregon State. If you can have his dad give me a call later on, that would be great. and because we're not allowed to call them. Now, I didn't know that was going to be LeVar Ball. So,
Yeah.
So as I'm walking out of the gym, I said to Tope, I said, Tope, there's no way in the world I'm going to coach him at Oregon State. He's too good.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to move. And I didn't know I was moving to UCLA the next year.
Yep.
So the following year comes, I moved to UCLA. I tell Coach Steve Alford about Zoe. He sees him and he likes him and he offers. And then we're building a relationship. He comes to our games. And then LeVar, this before LeVar was famous.
Sure.
He gives me a call and says, hey, Coach Gray, Zoe wants to talk to you. Now, Zoe was shy back then and didn't really talk a whole lot, you know. So I said, oh, my goodness, what's this? And he said, hey, Coach Grace, I want to commit. I said, you want to what? He said, I want to commit. He's a sophomore in high school. I said, oh, my goodness. So let me go find Coach Alford. I go find Coach Alford, and Coach Alford, I said, Coach, Zoe's on the phone. He said, have him call back. You know, I didn't know Coach Alford really that much at the time. I had just gotten there. He hired me without us having a relationship prior. And so I went through the practice, and I was nervous because I thought he was going to decommit during practice. So I called the high school coach. Then we got LeVar and Zoe back on afterwards, and he committed to us. So that's how Alonso got to UCLA.
LeVar. So, you know, I've known LeVar like you, and I'm sure I've told you this story, but mutual friend of ours, Raymond Ely, calls me up. It was, I think, July 4th weekend, maybe, and there was a tournament in Pasadena right down the road from where I live, and he says, you got to come see this Alonso Ball kid. He's already committed. His brother's already committed, and he's got a younger brother. They all play together. They play this crazy style, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I go down, and obviously that was where I first got to know LeVar. This was before Alonso's even senior year of high school, let alone his time at UCLA. I'm a big defender of LeVar. I don't support everything that he's done. Would have loved to see LiAngelo continue at UCLA, LaMelo continue his high school career as planned. Listen, I always say this. I don't agree with everything LeVar's done. I don't agree with everything my wife does. She doesn't agree with everything I do, you know? And so, but I think he's an incredible parent. I've seen up close. I know he loves his kids. What is your relationship like with him? And I know it's a relationship that continues to this day.
Yeah, we have a great relationship. We don't call each other all the time. We're both busy, but we have.
Once you get him on the phone, you can't get him off too. That's part of the problem. So,
and it's always going to be entertaining. You know, I'll tell you a little quick thing. But you know, with LeVar, he and I have a different relationship because obviously I've known him way before he became famous.
Yep.
And we got to know each other. We talk. He talks differently, obviously, in private than he does when he has an audience. You know, he loves an audience. He loves I call it the Muhammad Ali, boasting and stuff. But he has a huge heart, and he loves family. He means well. I've seen him give a truck away. I've seen him do other things for the community. And, you know, he's never was on the shoe circuit. Yeah. You know, he did it wholesome. He did the mom and pops AAU. He never asked for anything. They sold out arenas. You know, they didn't sell out high school. They sold out arenas when they played. Zoe's senior year, they go 35-0, win a national title. And arguably probably might be the last public school ever to do that. Sure. And there's obviously going to be another top 5 pick that was on that team in Onyeka out of USC. Yeah. But getting back to LeVar, just a great guy and a fun guy to be around. When we used to go over and do the home visits, he cooked for us.
Yeah. And big bowl breakfast. Yep.
Yeah, made us all breakfast, and it was great. He loves to tell stories. He loves to have fun. You know, and he loves to enjoy life. he knows he's not better than Michael Jordan, but he just says it. So, that shock jock. I remember there was an earthquake, and I'm here last year. There was an earthquake in the LA area where he lives. And I texted him, I said, LeVar, you okay? He said, nah, man, it's just us moving some furniture around. Everybody will be all right. So, you like to get those type of texts from him. But he really cares about his kids. He told everybody that his kids were going to be draft picks.
Yes.
Play professionally, and he was right about it. Melo has a chance to go number 1 or number 2 in the draft. And I saw that in him as well a long time ago. So, a lot of things he said is became true, but he's a happy-go-lucky guy. And he obviously, when you get famous like that, you're not always going to, people's not always going to agree with you on some of the things you do, and to do it how he became famous is uniquely different. And but those young men are great students. I don't know if people know that. Alonso went to class. Jello went to class. All of them were great students. The mom was a school teacher, and she had a stroke, and she's doing better now. But they were never disrespectful. Zoe was a joy to coach. Yeah. Very coachable young man. A real quick story about Zoe is the season before, I believe we were 16 and 17. He comes along. Aaron Holiday was the starting point guard. He comes along, becomes the starting point guard, and we go 31 and 5, and he does it with the Pats. And a lot of people don't know that, don't realize that. He did it with his the guys on the team loved him. Yeah. Because he shared the basketball and he loved the pass. He loved more passing than scoring. We used to have to tell him in timeouts to score. But even him and Aaron became great friends. Yep. And Aaron's now playing for the Indiana Pacers. And he changed the whole culture along with TJ Leaf and Ike Enabugu. They all came in, and it was he did it in the locker room. I mean, the whole locker room changed, and we ran the same plays. So that goes to tell you what players do for you.
Well, and it's a testament to Aaron Holiday, too, and it's something I've talked to you about, Coach Alford about, whatever, is that, what did we just talk about? Oh, you're taking my starting job. Oh, I'm going to hit the portal. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, you're recruiting a guy at my position. He stays. He ends up, I believe, he wasn't Pac-12 Player of the Year because Arizona had DeAndre Ayton that year. But I think he finished second in Pac-12 Player of the Year. This is Aaron Holiday, not Alonso Ball. Yeah. Aaron Holiday, yeah. Pac-12 Player of the Year, second place, first team all Pac-12, and he ends up being a lottery pick. Real quick on Melo. Melo's another one. You and I both, certainly you more so than me, have a relationship before all this. I never got to know Melo well, but I talked to him, at the gym and when he was around LeVar and all that stuff. And, I found him to be another one. I knew him when he was probably 14 years old. So obviously by nature he was going to be quiet. But, but even then you could see it. And, I remember that first time going to the gym, and he was probably about 5'2", 5'3", but he would stand in the corner, and, Zoe would help him out a little bit. He'd get him the ball in shooting position, but he knocked down every one. And I remember coming out of that saying to my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, she was with me, which is another kind of incredible element of all this, is like, Zoe's good, but wait till that kid is his age. Well, Melo is now that age. He could potentially be the number one pick. And listen, I get it. People haven't seen him for years now. The last impression they have may not have been great, as it was kind of that circus at Chino Hills. And, oh, by the way, there are obviously off-the-court things that come with recruiting or drafting a Ball brother, which is a lot of the hype, a lot of the media and stuff. But I believe Melo's the most talented player in this draft. I've said all along, if I'm not taking Obi Toppin number one, I would take Melo. You've known him on a different level than any of us. Would just love your kind of information on, your personal experience on him.
Well, I'm biased, so I think I agree with you. So I'm biased in that department. But, Melo he's different than Lonzo, different personality, different, type of player. He's got a lot of the same traits, though, as Lonzo in a roundabout way. He was more of a scorer in high school than Zoe was, and now he's even passing like Zoe at times. You know, I saw him play last year in the grind session before he went down to Australia, but he has a different personality. He's a little bit more on edge. He's kind of I would say that.
When the lights go on, we're not saying this off the court, but when the lights go on, he's a little bit of a prick, which can be a good thing.
That's what gets him going.
Yep.
You know, I've coached other kids that had the same thing, and you know, Jared Bayless had the same thing. He spent 10 years in the NBA, so he has that. He's different than Zoe in that ability, and I love them. They're different. You know, I love them both the same. They're always fun to text with, and they like to have fun. If you go watch their IG, they like to have a great time. But he's going to make an NBA team better. But him, just like Zoe, have to go to a right situation. I think Zoe now is with the right situation. He wasn't with the right situation with the Lakers. He's with a great organization with the Pelicans right now. I love the Lakers, but it's better for Zoe to be over here where he can facilitate. Him in with LeBron, it just wasn't a good fit. So I'm not taking nothing away from either one. But with the weapons he has with the Pelicans, and I hope the Pelicans take my other guy and Aaron Naismith coming up in the draft as well, the best shooter in the draft. So I'm putting a little plug out there for Aaron Naismith as well. So.
Vandy guy. Coach, we've been doing this for about an hour. I want to let you go. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about? Anything that you either want people to know about your experience, your journey? I should mention, by the way, if people want more background on the Air Force and how you kind of got to where you are, years ago I wrote an article for foxsports.com, which is very easy to find online. But, you know, you've told your story a few times. I wanted to get some more of this other stuff. And I think, you know, like you said, you always have young people kind of asking you for advice. And I thought that people would be receptive to this. And I think they will be. And I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to kind of share, add, anything else?
Well, this profession is not for everybody. And I don't mean it in a negative way or arrogant way. You're going to put in a ton of hours.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be fair. I've seen a lot of great coaches do everything right and get let go. I've seen bad coaches get promoted.
Yeah.
It's very, you know, there's only 1,000 or so, a little over 1,000 or so assistant coaches in Division I. And it's a cutthroat business. It's a tough business. It's a very, very little there as well. And in New Year's, you could be coaching or on the road. And so you have to sacrifice a lot. But that's with a lot of careers that are like this. You know, to get to this level, you had so much that you have to give up to be there, and then you got to work extremely hard, and you got to get with the right head coach too, and that's not easy to do. That head coach is very important. So, you know, I've been able to do that, and I've been able to not be with the right one. So this with that is I just want people to know that if they're trying to move up in this business or get in this business, know that it's not all what you see on TV. It's a lot of, you know, I have a lot of frequent flyer miles, a lot of Marriott points. So, you know, but I want to thank you. You've been tremendous to me. You did that article a long time ago, which I still get people asking me about it. I'm very thankful for you. I really appreciate you allowing me to come on your show and your cast, and it means so much to me. And you know, when I see your phone number pop up on my phone, I'm picking it up. Like I think you commented on that. What was it, yesterday or the day before? But you're my guy. You got me for life, and And that's with anybody who I come in contact. You're always going to have me for life.
No, and I feel very much the same. You're, listen, I'm supposed to remain unbiased and all that stuff, and I think I do. I'll be critical of whoever. Everybody who knows me knows I'm not afraid to be critical. But obviously, right. you build friendships, you build relationships. Always valued your friendship and just kind of all that stuff. So, David Grace, as I mentioned, about 18-ish years, I think, at the Power 5 level. As I said, Oregon State, Cal, UCLA, and Vandy, and 20+ years as a Division I assistant on top of time served in the military. So I appreciate this, and you and I will be talking soon, but we'll do this again formally with the video recording and all that stuff soon. Okay?
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Aaron.